don't think it's on.
Good morning. Is it working?
Nope.
Nope.
Now?
Yes.
Whole bunch of edibles in the conference room? Kidding. My name is Rygg, and I've been in Pasadena about 20 years. They asked me to talk about high tech and about cannabis, and my journey to it wasn't really direct. I had a programmer who kept bugging me because he was doing point of sale and inventory management control software for dispensaries. He kept saying, "Rich, you got to look at it. You got to look at it. This thing's taken off." So finally I listened to him, and I got into it. But my background is really, I started off at IBM and Hewlett-Packard and CompuServe, GeoCities, America Online, opened first America Online office in California. We got acquired by Yahoo from GeoCities, and I moved up to Yahoo for a while. My parents couldn't understand why I'd leave IBM or HP, right? And now I can't imagine what they'd think, So, first thing I did was to try to understand the industry, and I went into a dispensary, and I said, "I just want to look around." And they said, "No, you got to get a card." So then I went and got a card. And they give the list of things that qualify you for a card. There's like 242 medical conditions. So I looked at it and thought, very skeptical. It's like snake oil, and so that was my first kind of reaction to it. From there, though, I went to a conference about 3 or 4 years ago, and I would say that the conference was full of people at that time much more like this, and at night they would do things like who can roll the biggest joint. I'm serious. This is serious. The first conference I went to, the first day I was there, I was at the top of the Rio with the Bob Marley family, right, at a party, and they partied Jamaican style. I mean, it was quite a party. Then through the last few years, people started looking more like this, right? And they get together and do stuff like this. So it's changing. So what I saw at the beginning, and actually the very first conference, literally every 5 or 10 minutes you'd smell a grower walking by. I mean, because it smells, you got that pungent smell. So I would kind of characterize it as an industry full of very knowledgeable people. I mean, extremely knowledgeable people operating in the black or gray area, kind of independently or secretly, who are kind of, from a business perspective, unsophisticated. And now you've got a lot more business sophistication coming in, but they're very knowledgeable about the industry. So those two cultures are mixing now. In trying to understand, somebody told me, go talk to my buddy down in San Diego who runs Pure Ratios. And they make these patches. I've got some, if anybody's got any pain, I got some patches. Come see me after. And this is where I really started to believe in the product as a medicine. So they gave me some patches. I put some on a shoulder that was sore, and the pain went away. I started panning them out, doing my own little market research. And everybody who used them had pain, just about everyone. Anyways, they worked. I gave two to a friend of mine who's an anesthesiologist, attended Stanford Medical School, and plays soccer still. And I said, tell me about it, check them out, just look at them. 2 months later, he called me up and goes, "Rich, you got any more of those patches?" I go, "What's going on?" Because I tweaked my knee, and I've been wearing the patch for a week, and the pain went away, and I ran out of patches, and the pain came back. So I was hearing story after story like this. There was a love letter that these guys got from, envision a little old lady. And she said, "My 90-year-old husband has Parkinson's, and after a week of using the patches, all his shaking's gone." So there's story after story. I started to become a believer. How many people know the story of Charlotte's Web? So Charlotte, as a baby, had something like 20 epileptic seizures a day. So as a baby, she really couldn't develop very well. She wasn't developing normally. Her mother found, tried everything, found CBD oil. Started using CBD oil. The seizures went away. Now she's a normal child of 5, 6, 7 or something. She has 1 seizure a month by using CBD oil, which is an extract of cannabis. So I started to become a believer in all the products, whether it's topical, anything that really is cannabis. I started to believe in. So I overcame my skepticism, and I started to look at the industry, and divided it into more like a consultant. And I divided it into cultivation, harvest, production, and retail. So the plant basically ends up being flowers, trim, or waste. You then produce it. You have retail quality that turns into a smoke product, or you extract and you distill, and that goes into things like vapes, distillates, topicals. In analyzing it, we looked at a lot of different things. It was more a process of elimination, so we're eliminating things we didn't want to do. And we ended up at toll manufacturing. So toll manufacturing is kind of like the miller to all the wheat farmers. So wheat farmers take their wheat to somebody who grinds it into flour for a feed. Right? What we're doing is we're in the process of getting permitted up in Santa Cruz to basically allow people to bring us their product, right? The flour or the trim, and then we extract it using ethanol, and then we distill it using a machine like this. What you end up with is something that looks like honey, doesn't smell like honey, and it's a little stickier, but it's a lot like honey. So a lot of times you hear people, and we heard at the beginning of the internet, like you had so many people rushing to the internet to get rich quick, you see the opportunities. A lot of people did, and you see the same thing in cannabis. A lot of people are coming in, and you know what? There's a lot of challenges. It's not that easy. So it might look very, like a lot of sun is shining, but there's a lot of challenges. So what I want to do is go over the challenges quickly, then hopefully just open up the questions that I hope I can answer. One, there's a lot of licenses. These are all licenses just to cultivate. I mean, what other industry has a set of licenses like that? And then these are the ones for things like manufacturing, dispensary, distribution. So they have put so many regulations on this industry. So this means all these licenses mean you need a license to cultivate. Then you need a license for somebody to come and take it somewhere, to transport it. Then the person who's going to do the manufacturing has to have a license. You give it to the distributor, they have to have a license. The testing lab has to have a license. All these different entities are all licensed in different ways. So it's very complex right off the bat. They're putting in something called the seed to sale system, which means that every plant is put into a system and tracked. So every plant ends up with a serial number. All the serial numbers go into a batch. All the batch, everything is tracked. The weight is tracked. And it's you got to keep track of every penny and everything. It's pretty onerous. When you look at something like just the proposed regulations for cultivation, 58 pages, right? When you look at some of the things in high tech we take for granted, like being able to start up an e-commerce, use Google, use Facebook. Well, you can't advertise on Google or Facebook or Twitter, and you can't ship anything through the Postal Service or UPS or FedEx. Stuff that, every one of us uses every day almost. I love this picture of the Prohibition, right? Old Prohibition truck. But it's an industry that's coming out of Prohibition into being legal, right? It still has much of the old prohibitionist culture, right? And what that means, one of the things is they're not, in high tech we've got open source, and it's easy to get on the phone and call a friend. It's easy to go onto a message board and ask engineers how'd you solve this question, right? Everybody's very open. In the industry, last few years, it's still been hard just to identify anybody who's doing anything, right? Everybody's secretive. They were secretive. So getting up and over the learning curve to find your way over here, to the payoff, it's not as straightforward, and it's not as easy to find information. Another part of the, kind of the culture, we take for granted making a cell phone call, sending a text, sending an email, writing out a business plan, having a spreadsheet, budget, right? Well, there's so many people in the industry that, the only way they want to communicate is via WhatsApp or Signal, right? They don't want to send an email, they don't want to make a phone call, they don't want to send a text. Everything is very encrypted. And there's still a big segment that's that way. So that's actually, with some of my partners up there, has been hard for me to adjust to. I'm kind of an email guy, email and text. So I have records of it, and they just don't. They don't want to document things. And it's because of the federal government. Financing, really hard to get financing. You certainly can't go to the bank. You can't go to Silicon Valley Bank. That's something in high tech we take for granted, right? Take for granted that we can go to angels, that we can go to VCs, that there's financing available. Banking, just getting a bank account, right? We take that for granted. A banker friend of mine estimates there's something like $4 or $5 billion of cash in California sitting in private vaults, under houses, in the backyard, wherever it's just cash. No merchant processing. How would you do e-commerce today?
That can be done.
It can, however, it's difficult, right?
No, but there is a way.
Well, there is way, but
I've done it.
What you hear all the time, many times, the story I hear all the time is, hey, they found out we were selling CBDs. They found out we were selling
Sure.
it, and they get cut off. So a lot of people, what you end up doing, a lot of people end up going like to England and offshore, but some of those terms can be onerous. Some of those are like 90-day in arrear payments and 14, 15% charge. So it's not like we can set up e-commerce and just start selling stuff. Taxes. Some of the taxes are like up to 45%, depending on where you are. So 15% might be city, 15% might be county. I think California just came out with like 7.5 or something they're putting on it. So the taxes are onerous. And in a high-tech startup, until you're making money, you're not really paying much, right? Politics. The biggest kind of scare right now is what's Jeff Sessions going to do, right? So you've got that cloud of uncertainty hanging over your head. Finding good people. It's really hard to find engineers. In the cannabis industry, it's hard to find good people. For one thing, a lot of people are secretive, but it's just hard to find. The industry is headed towards commodity prices. I have growers up north who are telling me they're expecting price to go way down. Somebody built a model for, in 5 years, the price of a pound of commercial grade being $50. 2 years ago it was $2,000. This season, if there's growers here, they know better than me, but I've heard people saying some of the outdoor grow stuff's down to like $500, $600 a pound. So it's going down. When you look at the industry, I found this slide and I liked it because for the opportunities in the marketplace, because it's kind of messy, right? It's kind of hard to understand. And I said it's a good metaphor for the industry. Contrast it to high tech, so much of it's defined, so much of it, there's systems, there's support, there's infrastructure. But cannabis is really, really kind of messy. But that said, I think mess is an opportunity. And I think there's so many opportunities in cannabis in all over the place. You know, I don't know if you can read all these from there, but the problems, opportunities from just something like solving the banking problem, solving, merchant processing, all these things, a million problems to be solved. So with that, I'll leave that up there and go to questions, and hopefully I can answer.
Very insightful. 1 second.
Come on, you guys.
Okay, cool. Very insightful perspective on the emerging solutions and also some of the problems that have yet to be solved in the cannabis industry. And there's a lot of potential with that. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we're trying to solve problems, and in that delta is some profit. Also, that was like the fastest presentation we've ever had. So we have lots of time for Q&A. So if you guys have questions, raise your hand. And John will walk around with the mic. Generally speaking, we do not allow comments and storytelling. We have so much time. If you have something you want to share, I think that's kind of okay right now. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Deborah Kasarjian. I have a question about what we can learn from Oregon and Colorado, like what's worked and what's not worked.
I'm not an expert in Oregon, Colorado. I think I'll give you one anecdote from Colorado. I was sitting with, a couple months ago, at a meeting with Steve D'Angelo up north, and he said he expected things like, he was the opposite on the price. He looked at it and said, trim is going to be double and quadruple, and then be impossible to get from a manufacturing perspective if it follows what Colorado did. And I think that's because of the enforcement, and they were able to push out all the black market stuff. Oregon was the other one. I mean, I think Oregon and Washington, one of the lessons is it was kind of, I mean, they allowed people to plant and grow as much as they wanted, and so the prices went way down and the quality went way down. So right off the bat, they had a lot of bad pot that was really cheap.
Next question, sir.
Hi, my name is Andrew Fang. I have a two-part question. What are your thoughts on John Chang's cannabis banking working group, and how much is that helping? And then, with your background in technology, how far do you think we are in 9 innings of getting to standardized profit margins, distribution systems, and normalization? Because a lot of big funds and medical groups that I'm talking to, they're too concerned about how young the industry is. And like in restaurants, everybody knows exactly what profit margin, cost of goods, labor, for depending on what concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the first one I don't know. The second one, what was the second question?
How far along are we?
How far along? The metaphor that comes to mind is the industry is coming out of playing in sandlots, and it's first batter up in the stadium, right? There's so much that's coming. Just imagine what's going to happen if the federal government legalizes everything. Then everything changes. Then it'll probably be sold by Amazon, but.
Yeah. Go ahead. Over here.
Hi, my name is Johnny. I've been in the industry for about a year, and considering your high-tech background, do you think the IoT or cryptocurrency will have a play in the industry first?
I don't know. I'm just trying. Two weeks ago, I was trying to understand, having a coin offering, right? An ICO, just trying to understand the whole blockchain thing. And last week, I learned a lot from here. I think there's blockchain opportunities, I think the blockchain for this industry is probably be combined with some old or some former high-tech ventures. I mean, I actually think you could do something like a Groupon with a blockchain, right? And do it for cannabis.
Have you heard of Ripple?
I haven't.
Well, so they're using Ethereum, but it's not cannabis focused. They actually tie into the bank somehow versus
Okay.
all the other.
I know. I was talking to somebody yesterday whose friends did an offering up in San Francisco, and they raised $250 million. Right. So it was, yeah, but it's like I have a hard time getting my arms around it in terms of value. You know, what's it tied to? To me, a lot of this feels a bit like a Ponzi scheme.
Got the next question.
What do you anticipate happening in the new year with legalization in California? What are you looking at as far as life getting easier as far as some of these restrictions, and also just moving forward?
No, it's a mess, is what it is. I mean, up in Santa Cruz where we're operating, we thought we knew what everything was going to be in November, and then they changed it, right? And then so they don't even have any permits. They're giving, even the city doesn't do permits. They do, they're giving letters of recommendation that this person is a good, these are good people and they've been operating, so that we can go into the state and register, right, for the temporary. But I think they're going to be hard pressed to get the systems in place for 18 months. I think this whole year is going to be a mess. My opinion.
Sounds about right.
Hey Rich, good talk, although you promised brownies.
Andy said I couldn't have it.
So you mentioned communication as a big aspect of the industry, and both of us have worked with the founder of WhatsApp. Do you, at Yahoo, do you see a POT-based communication app where we can also do payments like WeChat or?
Sure. Somebody here make it. I mean, I think right now the most common too is WhatsApp and Signal, right? And there's no payment in there. But boy, I just got back from China a few weeks ago, and everywhere we went, our host paid with this. Go into a brewery and order a bunch of beers.
Yeah.
Everything was this.
Yeah, I come here every couple of weeks, and every time my back is just killing me from standing here listening to these talks. You have anything maybe topical that?
Come get it.
All right. Well played, sir.
Okay.
So I'm kind of piggybacking off of what he just said. I do have a cannabis edible that I do. I do a vegan ice cream. Hi, Mike. Thanks for the invite. As far as the technology and having some type of app, because I am a retailer in the industry, I've been offered, the opportunity to work with some companies that are trying to build these things. And so, yeah, they're definitely coming in the works as far as us being able to do things like keep track of all of our sales and be able to communicate with patients and be able to send them information on coupons and different things like that. It's really, really starting to boom, and people are starting to build apps that will support the industry.
One thing I'd say is the one social network that has embraced cannabis is Instagram, right? There's a lot of people using Instagram. But still the most effective online marketing tool is email. So really, right now in the industry, I think however you can grab email addresses and develop your customer database that way is more valuable it's going to be. Because, like I said, you can't go advertise on Google.
Hey, my name is Ryan. You mentioned that the cost of cannabis raw flower is going down, and I have been experiencing that with outdoor light debt farmers from up north, but it seems like down here in Los Angeles, a lot of the indoor cultivation, the cost is going up.
Okay.
Things that were like $2,500 a pound are now $3,200. In my experience, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on indoor cultivation.
Yeah.
Skyrocketing.
Yeah, I'm not that close to the pricing on that. And the reason, and for the rest of you, the reason the indoor stock has a premium is you're able to control everything. So you're able to control humidity and light and nutrition and everything, and maybe better keep the bugs out and stuff. You end up with a really, really potent. But I don't know if anybody else who's been in the industry knows if that's what you're experiencing. I don't know. I mean, what we do is people just bring us stuff, we process it, and we give it back. So we're not buying.
Rich over here. Actually, I was just walking by Andy. He was asking, is there anything for dogs and pets?
There is. There's pet meds. So somebody was just telling me.
That was me, actually. I was working on a project that involved pet meds and CBD for dogs and cats, chronic pain, anxiety.
Well, the thing you said about cats I thought was interesting, that the cats can't process regular pain relievers, right? But CBDs, they can process it and help them.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I got to ask you this. So, do you regret going into the cannabis business? It sounds like you had a lot of success in tech, and you seem to be pretty, sober about this business.
Well, am I so? I mean, I'm sober right now. No, actually, all these. I put all these challenges up to try to keep everybody out. Now all those challenges just are opportunities. It really is. If you can overcome them, that's a huge entry barrier to the people who can't, right? But I have one foot in this, and I'm actually involved in a project in China that's completely not related to cannabis.
And does anybody else have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on what he was mentioning earlier about the credit card processing. So about 9 months ago, about a year ago, I've been in this space, and I did a project for a client in Santa Monica. It's actually a spa that what they do is to sell the cannabis, they basically bundle it into a spa package. So we got like manicures, pedicures, and then the cannabis flowers is extra. Now, of course, at the beginning of the year, it's all they moved, but that's how she got away with that. Now, as for credit card processing, that was an interesting story, because basically, originally she was with one service, they had 3 credit card processors, the big players, it didn't go through, none of them wanted to work with high-risk businesses. What we ended up doing instead was, we basically just did a WordPress site with WooCommerce, if you're familiar with that, it's an e-commerce software off the shelf, and we went through 20 different processors. The very last one was the one that actually said yes. It's a company called PayTrace. The plan is like $79 if you want to get it for WooCommerce. WooCommerce is free. And basically you can set up if you want to start selling marijuana, you can do it that way. So it actually worked, and it's been up for about 9 months now.
Is it a bank, or is it like
No, it's credit card processing.
Yeah.
Just like PayPal or Authorize.
Okay.
So look up PayTrace.
PayTrace.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good tip.
I have a question about medical regulation, because other drugs are regulated by the FDIC. So I hear a lot of good things about Parkinson's, and I forget what the eye disease is. But a lot of those people are probably have blood pressure, diet, other problems. How are they? And they're probably on other medications. How do they know that there's no drug interaction? And how's that regulated?
They don't, right? But President Trump says we're going to have all regulations back to the 60s, so it doesn't matter anymore. I'm being flipped, but
are you?
It's a lot of it's anecdotal. The thing that's unfortunate, right, is that because there's been so much propaganda against cannabis and hemp, that it's a class 1 drug. Cocaine is a class 2, right? And so they haven't been able to do any research. A lot of the research is coming out of Israel and some other places. There's more of it now, but I'm kind of amazed at how little side effects they have with anything, right? Any of the other drugs. We have an endocannabinoid system within us that just figured it out like 20 years ago. So there hasn't been much research on it. Oops, we have. So we have a system, and we have receptors where the cannabinoids fit right into our receptors. And my experience so far is there's no side effects that I've seen.
Back here.
Hey Rich, thanks for the presentation. My question is, being in the social media space, especially being hyper-local to where we all have our own neighborhood groups now, a lot of the talk that I see about the storefronts coming in is fairly negative, or it's split 50-50 of people saying, hey, it's been great for me, and other people having what some of us would say was like old-fashioned ideas about pot in our neighborhoods. So what kind of dialogue, or how is the industry sort of opening dialogues, or at least trying to educate people as far as the storefronts coming in their neighborhood being a good or bad thing?
That's such a good question for Andy Wilson.
Yeah.
Did he leave?
Just laugh.
He left.
Of course.
You know, it's a grass. I don't have a great answer to that, right? I think it's some of the community up north are a lot more friendly. I mean, Santa Cruz is kind of a hippie town. They've had one of the oldest dispensaries in the United States and in California, and it's, you know, over time it's just become part of the fabric of who they are as a city. Someplace like Pasadena, you've got, old, a lot of old money, a lot of old, it's established, kind of a very conservative town. Getting them to understand the benefits of it. It's like, the 242 reasons that you could get a card sounds pretty much like snake oil to a lot of people. So I think it's grassroots, and it's education, and it's just trying, beating on it over and over and over. I don't have a great answer for you, sorry.
Okay, Rich.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. My question is, where do you see larger corporate investments or acquisitions, especially with tobacco or big pharma, or if it will happen?
Yeah, I think you're going to have big pharma and big ag coming in and probably manufacturing. But the thing that's keeping them out right now is the federal government, right? They touch it, they're a huge target. They still have all these confiscation laws in the federal level and stuff. So as prices as it become more of a commodity, right, and the margins get squeezed out, then what other things are going to acquire? Number one, just going to be brands. Who's got the best brands, right? And the top one or two brands in any category, or what's going to get bought first, right, and get rolled up. And then probably anybody who's really successful with dispensaries or something like that, it's going to be like Starbucks. Somebody's going to buy all the dispensaries, right? I imagine, right now, for the last few, 10 years, they've been like head shops, right? Some of the really great dispensaries, though, are an incredible experience where you go in and it's just, it's like a great retail experience. Whoever develops those chains, they're going to get acquired.
Okay, Rich.
Yes, hi. I want to know about your opinion about the quality of the cannabis. There are good qualities and bad qualities, and even organic ones. I don't know. What is your opinion? Of course, organic ones going to be more expensive, and so I need your opinion about this, because I read somewhere that some of them, they are not really good to take because of the quality, how they grown.
Well, in the, in kind of the open industry, I'd say that, where there's growers who are selling to growers who are selling into dispensaries or any type of commercial activity, everything gets tested, right? And so this last year, there was a lot of problems with Eagle 20, right? Which is something that they put on crops to fight fungi, right? And powdery mildew. It's horrible stuff. I mean, if you smoke it, it turns into cyanide or something. So bad stuff. So you've had a big push of of organic and organic farmers, and staying away from any of the pesticides and things that perhaps make the quality poor. And that's what you primarily are going to get in the dispensaries here. But you still have a huge black market in California. And a lot of the black market is using whatever pesticide or fungicide that helps them get rid of all the pests in the mold. So you can end up on the black market getting product that's not very good quality, right? As opposed to the organic growers, which is great. I mean, you know, one of the things that scares me about California and Sessions is up north when you take the Emerald Triangle, which is Humboldt and Sonoma and Trinity, right? I mean, their economy is something like $5 billion they sell out into the black market in the United States. 50% of all the pot in the United States is grown up there. So the thing that scares me is actually Sessions and Trump looking at it and saying, well, California is a rebel state and it's infecting the rest of the United States and we need to clamp down.
Over here, next question.
So yeah, my question is in the same vein of what you were talking from the political standpoint. So if the Republicans say stay in the White House for the next 7 years, what is the industry thinking about what they need to do to prepare for a worst case scenario, or at least a more likely scenario, given they're going to have to put up with the same for the next one?
I think we're all in denial. But I you know, I can't talk necessarily about industry. I think it's in the back of our minds. It's kind of scary, right? They could come in on the federal level and put a lot of people in jail. So, you know, let's cross our fingers.
I guess along those lines, do you have an opinion about what's going on in Canada? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau already announced next year, I think July 1st, that it's going to be federally legal in Canada. And I know that the Canadian Stock Exchange has several publicly traded cannabis companies. In fact, I think there's also an ETF, electronically traded fund of cannabis stocks. So it's become more mainstream. Do you have any opinion about what's going on in our neighbor up north?
I think I'd like to move to Canada.
Actually, I've heard a lot about cannabis companies are going out there. It's much easier to do research. It's much easier to raise capital. Certainly the licensing and permitting and all that is more clear compared to the U.S.
I mean, the thing, if you look at 7 more years of the Republicans, let's hope it's not that long. Sorry, I shouldn't be political up here. That's not a church. At some point, it's going to swing over, right? And at that point, when it swings over, then it's going to take off in a trajectory, I think. And you're going to have public companies, and you're going to have all the, I mean, it's going to take off in a big way when it swings.
Actually, all the way in the back.
Hi. Hi. Yes. Just kind of have a question and a comment. There's a lot of supporters as an entrepreneur, as a healthcare provider. I'm a big supporter of medical marijuana as marijuana in general, and I've seen it progress from going into cars, right, and being sold in cars and houses to what it is today. And that is enough motivation to see where it's going to go, despite, you know, the political landscape. So my question is, what are some things we can do today? Because to me, money talks, right? And if you can prove an industry is safe and can be a valuable resource, then in the long term, it's going to survive. So what are some things we can do today as entrepreneurs to, I don't know, continue to keep fighting, right?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. Join some of the associations, growers associations and things, and support that. But also on the local level, go to the city council, right? Go to the city council meetings and get up there and talk and take the time and tell them, your stories or tell them you support it. They need to hear it.
Okay.
I have a question about the testing space. Can you elaborate on how you see California being able to handle this going into the new year and some of the challenges that might be faced in that industry?
Well, let me ask the people who are in the industry that are here, how satisfied are you guys with the testing? Anybody gonna come forth and say it? Yeah, look, he's going like this. Testing is like such a sore subject. You can take the same sample and send it to the same sample and send it at different times to the same testing lab and get different results. You can send the same sample to 2 or 3 different labs and get different results. So right now it's a big opportunity, I think, in the industry, because everybody who uses testing just about is really not very happy with the testing. And it takes too long, it's expensive. I mean, as an example, anybody could develop a great way to just test a bunch of stuff spot really quickly in the field. You'd have, it'd be a great tool to have. But it needs, all I can say is there's opportunity there to do it right, and there's a lot of people who are doing it, and their precision isn't very good.
Is that with spectrometry?
Yeah. So they'll sit there and they'll get the scopes up and the chromograph, and look at it and identify things, and then give you a report.
Over here.
Water. I believe at least I've read that growers consume enormous amounts of water, and perhaps as much as almonds. I don't know, but almonds, I think growing almonds probably requires more water than any other crop. So what's the future for growers of cannabis in the state of California, especially when we're talking about Canada, the Northwest, probably don't have the scarce water problem that we do here. But what do you think?
As we go into legitimacy, the growers are going to have to compete with all the other crops and everything else, right? And as big ag and big comes in, they're going to be big farms consuming lots of water, and they're just going to be competing with the almonds and everybody else. On the black market side, it's different issue.
A quick comment about that. I actually heard that hemp is really good for phytoremediation. In other words, that it absorbs a lot of the contaminants and whatnot that's in the soil, and also cleaning up the water. And so, have you heard of anybody that's using that to...
I just heard a story that after the nuclear weapon and nuclear bombs in World War II in Japan, and what they did is plant Nagasaki with hemp everywhere for remediation. So I've heard it's a good remediator.